Good evening, everybody. This is the 4th episode of the Hashcast, and I got a full house for you tonight, and a good program which will hopefully bring you back down memory lane. So I'll just go by guest here. I have with me Jackie, aka the Geeky Fried Rice.
Hi, thanks for inviting me.
I have John from the Super Deformed Gamecast.
This is going to be so bad.
It is already
like halfway drunk. So yeah.
And I got Charles Singletary for me, and he does too much for one introduction, so I'm going to let him do the talking himself. Charles, tell us everybody a little bit about yourself, because I have trouble keeping up, and we're friends.
Well, hello. I'm finally here. I was supposed to be on the first episode and some other ones, but I'm finally here. Right now, I'm a news editor for Shack News. I do the Coins to Continue podcast. I tried streaming and I failed, so I stopped doing that forever. And I'm forever attempting to conquer my Steam black hole of backlog games. And that's never going to happen. So, yeah.
Probably not. Jackie, how about yourself? What else do you do?
Currently, I am having a lot of fun being a Twitch affiliate. I'm considered a casual streamer, and I'm a huge community advocate for the gaming industry. So I just really, really love helping cultivate communities, finding other streamers who need help, trying to grow their viewership and all of that fun stuff. So that's my jam. Cool. I love community stuff.
Cool. John, how about you, man?
Man, I tell you what, I don't play any games at all, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn last night. I'm the co-host and creator of just a tiny little podcast called Super Deformed Gamescast, which is a throwback to the old Super Deformed characters of the 16-bit era. And I started that with a bunch of friends, and now I am going to be on my second panel at PAX. In just a few weeks. I recently published my first article on Polygon.com. I'll be hosting Game Show Night, Susan Arndt's Game Show Night at PAX as well on Saturday night. And on SDGC, you can find we have podcasts about games, comic books, film, and also anxiety. I'm a huge advocate for people suffering from any form of mental illness because I suffer from generalized anxiety. And we have a podcast focused on that as well. I've also been published on takethis.org.
Cool. Well, I'm the Hashtagonist, and I don't do anything except for this and Twitter shenanigans. And that's how I met all of you wonderful people. I have met Charles face-to-face, and I'll be meeting John for the first time at PAX East. And
we're going to be sharing a room, buddy.
Yes, it's going to be super interesting.
It's going to be great.
It's going to be amazing. So I invited you all to talk about something very specific. Game moments that left such an impact on us that we just can't forget about them, and either they happened 20 years ago or they happened more recently, and we just know we're not going to forget about them. So I want to kind of dig into that, and we shared our stories offline to make sure we didn't tell the same story about the big moments. But I want to start with you, Jackie. Ladies first. Call me old-fashioned.
Good policy.
We'll start with like your oldest memory. What was that one moment that you first remember that you'll never forget again?
It's not necessarily the oldest,
okay,
but it is a story, a memory that I tend to come back to whenever someone asks me like what's a really impactful moment for you when you're gaming. And this was back when Gears 2 had launched, and I'm not necessarily a multiplayer type of gamer. I kind of like doing the solo campaign. I don't have a lot of friends, so I tend to do the solo campaign, but I got pulled into a couple of online games, and it was just me, and I was looking for a game, and I ended up with a group of 4 guys, and we were doing horde mode. We were in the security map, and we had almost done all 50 waves. We were up to like 35 or 36 or something like that. And that's a long time. That's probably like about 2 hours or so. Mm-hmm. And we're just talking and we're strategizing. And then I get knocked down and you're kind of just like crawling around, bleeding out and everything. And I hear one of the guys like, dude, she's down. Go get her. And then I hear a pause on the mic and he's like, we're playing with a girl? I thought it was a 14-year-old boy. And I was like, thank you for helping me up. And they're like, no. thank you for gracing us with your presence. And they stopped swearing. They were way more casual, and it was such a nice moment. Like, surely nowadays you don't really get to have that, but
no, gotta watch my language.
No, it was fun, and we actually would have gone to 50 Waves had the host did not, like, he disconnected. I guess poor internet or whatever, but that was such a cool moment to me, where it was just like, oh, they found out that I was a woman, but it's all good. Let's keep going. And we just had fun with it. And that stays with me, especially with, how things are currently in the industry. So that's a very special moment. That's a very special memory for me.
That is pretty cool. Yeah, that happens every day now here, especially Overwatch. Very good at that. Just kidding. That is pretty good. That is an interesting memory. John, I'm gonna go with the Age Before Beauty. So, what's your first one?
Depressing. That's depressing. So, two of mine are actually Final Fantasy VI, and I'll go over So we'll hit the first one, which I think was kind of the biggest one for me. Is Final Fantasy VI my favorite game of all time? And that game was there for me at a time I grew up. Dealing with heavy abuse from my father, physical and mental. And so Final Fantasy VI kind of became a place where I could escape to. I'm very lucky he did not throw my consoles out. And I remember one of my most vivid memories of Final Fantasy VI, a game I play annually, and I have since 1994, is when you reach the floating continent and Gestahl and Kefka have gotten they've stolen the Warring Triad from the Esper village, and then Kefka turns on Gestahl, and they fight. Gestahl loses. He boots Gestahl off the floating continent. And I was just 13 years old when I first played this. So I said, "Oh God!" I said, "Okay, well, Kefka." So I'm about to have my final boss battle with Kefka. Okay, and but then Kefka pushes the statues out of alignment, completely rearranges the state of the world, and then you just come to and Celeste is alone on an island. And I realized, and you've got that pan over the world with those Mode 6 graphics. The sky is now this sickly orange color. The land is dead. The water is polluted. And I thought to myself, oh my God, he won. And I wondered, my 13-year-old mind wondered if I had done something wrong. I was like, did I look, what happened? Like, Kefka won. He's not supposed to win. Like, what the hell happened? And Celeste alone on this island. And I realized once I got off the island that I had to go back through this ruined world, which was completely changed. All continents are moved, cities have been torn apart, and Kefka is being worshipped as a god on top of a mountain of trash. And I had to go back through. It was almost like playing like a different Final Fantasy game. I had to go reassemble my crew. That blew my mind. The bad guy was not supposed to win. And it made me have such a visceral anger for Kefka as a character, because honestly, he was like, I took what he did to the world and applied it to my own life. And I thought, you know what? So up till now, my dad has won. My dad has won. The bad guys won, but I'm not going to let that happen anymore. And so Final Fantasy VI, in that moment, in a way, helped me stand up and fight those battles for myself, not in my personal life. And that's why Final Fantasy VI and Kefka himself are. It's a very personal game for me. He's a very personal antagonist for me, because when I'm fighting Kefka, it's like I am fighting my own. It's like I'm fighting my childhood. If that makes any sense. So when Kefka tore the world apart, that was probably the most transformative moment for me in any game ever, and I will never forget it.
Well, thank you for making us all sound stupid after this. But
yes, thanks.
I'm glad I went first.
I should have known. I just need to know that when that happened and you land on the island with Sid, did you accidentally give him a poisoned fish, or did you?
No, I actually kept him alive. I kept him alive.
Nice.
And I did not know he did not know he could die until my second playthrough. I was like, oh crap, he died. What the hell did I do? Yeah. I just happened to get fast fish my first playthrough. I had no idea.
Yeah. I found it out years later that was actually an option. But
That's a depressing moment, especially for Celeste, because she throws herself off of the cliff.
That ties into one of my other moments. That moment there. I'll get into that later. But that game got dark.
Yeah. All right. How about you, Charles? Good luck with that. Following that.
Well, it's another Final Fantasy moment, but this time it's Final Fantasy VII. For me, Final Fantasy VII was the first Final Fantasy that I played. Mm-hmm. Not only that, it was also the first RPG that I ever played. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And at the time that I played it, I had no business playing it, but my uncle gave it to me. His son was a lot younger, and he definitely didn't have any business playing it, so he gave it to me. But that game opened my eyes up to a lot of things, not only just like narratively, but mechanics-wise with games. Like when I left Midgar and was in the open, like the overworld, I had never experienced that before in a game, and I was like, "What is happening? I don't know what to do," and it was overwhelming for me in a sense. And my first memory kind of plays into that as well, and it's Aerith's death, which, as far as the narrative goes, everyone kind of knows the impact of that and how important it was to the story. But that was also the first time that I'd been playing a game and a character that I was using in my party died and did not come back ever at any point. And even just that small thing kind of blew my mind. And probably that game made me a fan of RPGs to this day. Like it's easily my favorite genre. Yeah. But yeah, that's my first memory.
Yeah, I think everybody who played like Final Fantasy VII at that age had that experience. I replayed that game like years later, like recently, like 2 years ago, and a moment I completely forgot and that I completely missed probably as a kid is just before that. Cloud kind of goes insane because Sephiroth is in his mind, and he beats the shit out of Aerith, and I did not remember that at all until I played it in my adult life. I was like, what? I didn't even know that was happening. How dark that game got. Like I don't know how I dealt with it when I was like 12 years old, but that's a classic. That's a good moment. That's why we did a list before, and so we wouldn't all pick the same one.
All right.
So mine is kind of dumb. It's a Nintendo game called Red Gravity. It's a very old game, but when that came out, it changed the genre of platformers, because back then you had Mario where you could run from left to right, and that was about it. And Red Gravity came along. I'm not sure if you guys ever heard of it or even played it. Probably not.
No, I have to look it up actually.
Yeah, and in that game, not only could you walk from right to left, but there were levels where it was flipped upside down because there was like reverse gravity. You had an inventory. You could get power suits. It had so much for a Nintendo game. Like I've never seen it before. But at some point, there's a puzzle where there's like these escalator belts and spiked walls come down, and I could not beat it, and I just could not figure it out. It was frustrated. I was 7, 8 years old, and then at one time, I was sleeping. I was legit sleeping, and I was dreaming about this game because I played it so much. And in my dream, I threw a teleporter, which is an actual item that you had in this game, on the escalator belt and waited for it to get behind the walls, and then pressed the B button, which made you teleport to that location. So I was like, I wonder if that works, like middle of the night. So I'm waiting in my bed until it's daylight so I could go down and play my game. Run down, start it up, get to the level, and it fucking worked. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that this came to me in a dream and it actually worked. And I just remember that so vividly, like the waiting for, like figuring it out in my dream or whatever. Maybe I was just thinking about it. It's hard to remember back then. And then going down, and it worked in the game. And I probably will never forget that game mechanic that just blew my mind. You guys should check it out. It's a fantastic. I think it's a fantastic game. It probably didn't age well.
It sounds dope though.
Oh, yeah, that sounds like it's very ahead of its time.
Oh yeah, I can't believe that game. Like there's some playthroughs on YouTube, and in my mind it looks like super good, but it probably doesn't. But yeah, that was one of the first times where I played a game that I vividly remember, like a moment in that game. But I have some more sappy moments later on, so don't worry. So cycling back, anyone want to fill in on each other's moments there? Because I don't want to talk over anybody.
Charles, you mentioned that Final Fantasy VII is your first RPG. So have you played other games where... Because I don't know exactly what you've played, and I know that a lot of us are going back to like some old classics and everything, so I don't want to potentially spoil anything for you. But have you played through Chrono Trigger, like all the way through and everything?
I got very close to the end, and I lost my save file.
Oh,
that's the worst.
Yeah, I was very, very close to the end.
That
so
pains my soul.
I'm gonna play through that again, and it was one that I got to maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It was my first time playing it, and I'm kind of wary of going back to some of the more retro games, but that one didn't bother me at all. It lived up to every bit of hype that I'd experienced since before I was a part of the game industry and since. So it's amazing. I just got to get back to it.
I definitely want to know when you're done with your playthrough, and I want to know how it ended for you.
One of my moments was actually going to be a Chrono Trigger moment, but it's near the end, and I will not do that now. I'm glad we got that. I'm glad we solidified that. I would just like to build upon Final Fantasy VII real quick and say what I think is awesome, Charles. That being your first RPG is that not only did Final Fantasy VII break barriers in regards to characterization, like Aerith died, she was gone, and there was no way to bring her back. That was also the first RPG to feature an African American character as a main member of the party, Barrett Wallace, which I thought was awesome. That was one of the highlights of the game for me, and to me, that was Square Enix breaking down a lot of barriers before anybody else did. And I thought that was fucking awesome. Barrett is such a badass character with his gun arm, and I thought that's interesting as well with Final Fantasy VII being your first RPG. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, that was just a pure coincidence too. That it happened to be Final Fantasy VII. It worked out.
There's usually that headbutting with, depending on if you started with Final Fantasy VII, that's considered the best. But if you started with Final Fantasy, say, 4 or 6, that was considered the best.
And I've heard that, and that's why I absolutely have to play 6. 7 isn't even my favorite anymore. It was definitely my favorite for a very long time, but I really love 9 and 10. And they've kind of edged it out, but they're still some of my favorite games ever. All of them are in my top 25.
15 is my second favorite Final Fantasy game, which angers some people.
Oh, it's so 15? Good though.
It's so good.
It's so good.
Fuck the haters. It's such a good game.
I didn't like the pacing of 15, but I definitely appreciated a lot of the details that were poured into it. Just running around in the rain, or you just like seeing the way that their hair moved and everything.
And Arda Nizunia is right up there with Kefka as one of the best antagonists in the entire series, hands down.
Well, I love Final Fantasy 15 as well, and the chapters that people hate the most, I think it's so well done. Like chapter 11, just if you're listening and you haven't played it, it's gonna be spoilers all over the place. What I like about chapter 11 is that you generally start to dislike your teammates because they're they're nagging you, and you kind of.
I guess we're not thinking of others anymore, huh?
Yeah, but what it does so
That's
well.
so good.
By slowing you down, you start to get as the player, you start to get physically annoyed that they're not hurrying up, and that's exactly how Noctis is feeling in the game. And I hope they did that on purpose because it works so well. And
I remember when we used to be a team.
Exactly. And in chapter 13, when people were complaining about it was too slow.
I have no problem with 13.
That's exactly probably how Noctis feels, because you just want to push through it, and it's just long, and it takes forever. And if they did that on purpose, I think that was very well done. But yeah, 15 is great. I also love 10, Charles. I'm with you there as well. I don't understand the hate that game gets every now and then, but story-wise, that's probably one of the best ones. Oh man, I get so upset about the fake laugh when people take that out of context, because it's such a nice, heartwarming moment where like he tries to take the weight of the world off her shoulders.
But the fake laugh doesn't hold up today. Wow.
No, listen.
Moment does though.
It doesn't hold up when you take it out of context, when you just hear that scene. But if you get the whole story where he's literally telling her, "Fake it till you make it," just do a fake laugh, and then you'll start laughing for real. Like,
Dude, he did a
Kefka
laugh. You did a Kefka laugh.
He was trying to make her laugh, John. Come on.
Ha 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 ha!
That's
ha,
right.
ha 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 ha!
See, everybody's laughing now. It's working.
No.
I love that. Okay, let's not get too derailed.
All right, sorry, man.
That's a
I'm
podcast.
talking about Final Fantasy.
I just want to make sure that everybody knows Final Fantasy. These are great games.
Good.
All right, Jake, we're going to circle back to you because I made everybody pick 3 moments. So what's your next one in line?
This sounds very cliche, but I have to go with going through the trilogy of Mass Effect.
Oh, yes.
And I actually had to have my arm twisted to play this trilogy because I'm not a sci-fi fan.
No.
It was never a genre that I truly grew up with, so I didn't have a solid appreciation for those types of worlds. But a friend of mine was like, you have to play this game. You love Jade Empire. You have got to play this game. And I said, okay, I will give it a shot. And I was confused as hell when I first started. I didn't know what the hell a Turian was. I'm like, what? What do you mean? But I'm a very narrative appreciative type of gamer. I love a good story. I love characters that kind of draw you in, that make you feel something, and then up until the end of Mass Effect 3, again, spoilers if you haven't played the game, I didn't give a shit about Mordin. I thought I didn't hold on. I didn't quite care for him. I didn't care to have him in my party. Nothing about him like really drew me in, but it wasn't until Mass Effect 3 that I was just like, oh shit, I kind of get it. And then when you play the Paragon path and you're stopping the genophage and everything, I had to stop playing for about 20-25 minutes because I had cried so hard, and I went through like 2 boxes of tissues, and I can't ever like look at a seashell anymore without thinking about him. And it took 3 games for me to get to that point, but they did it, and it's amazing. And they made me fall in love with a character that I didn't even care about when I first saw him. And even when I had him through an entire game, I didn't care. And then I ended up caring about him the most.
Yeah.
And, he had very few lines that kind of like pulled me in, but, it had to have been me. Someone else might have messed it up. And I'm like, and like, even right now, I'm kind of like tearing up just thinking about it because it is such an impactful moment. And that actually, a badass, Garrus, love of my life, love him. But it was actually Mordin that kind of made it for me because it all just kind of tied in together, and I don't think I'll ever forget that for the rest of my life. So, props to BioWare and their writers because, holy crap, they converted me. Hardcore.
I have a lot to say about Mass Effect when we do the roundup of round 2. But I'll go to John first for his second moment.
So my second moment is another Final Fantasy VI moment.
Of course it is.
That whole fucking game could be a moment for me. But when I was a young teenager, 13, 14 years old, like I said before, I lived in a very, very difficult situation. My dad would throw me down staircases and beat the shit out of me. I mean, it was bad. It was bad growing up, and I had a lot of dark thoughts. When I was a young teenager, in my childhood, I didn't have a lot of friends at school, so there was no. I was picked on heavily at school, so there was not a lot of respite for me there. So no matter where I looked, I found adversity, right? And there was a moment when, when you hit the world of ruin, after Kefka has destroyed the world, Celeste is standing on a mountaintop. She thinks Locke is gone, and she attempts suicide. She throws herself off of a cliff. And I have never seen, up until that point anyway, I had never seen anything like that in a game. Mm-hmm. That was the darkest moment I had ever seen in a video game at that point. I started games early. I started games with literally Duck Hunt Super Mario Brothers, right? So I was there from the beginning. I'd never seen anything like that, and I realized, oh my God, she's trying to kill herself, and it didn't work. She lived. Her suicide attempt was not successful, and it made me realize that you know what, if Celeste, this general of the Empire, can make it through this kind of adversity and stand up and fight back, then I can do it too. So in that sense, Celeste really, I mean, the whole game kind of saved me at a moment when I desperately needed it. But that character, Celeste's struggle and her staring down the state of her world, like I was staring down the state of my world, and saying, "I'm not going to let you conquer me. I'm not going to let you beat me. And I'm not going to lose. I'm going to win." That really motivated me. That was kind of the impetus for me saying, I'm not going to let any of this change who I am. I'm not going to let any of this destroy me. I'm going to rise above this and be better than my surroundings. And so in that regard, Final Fantasy VI saved me in so many ways. But that was another just really strong moment for me. That was formative, not only in my gaming taste, but also in my personal life as well.
Okay, you're gonna go last next time, Joe. Jeez,
I was just gonna say that he's not allowed to go before anyone else.
John's third moment is how he loved Bubsy 3D on the SNES.
Perfect. No, my next I'll make my next moment the Guy game. Okay.
Yeah. Charles, how about you, man?
Okay, spoilers for Telltale's Walking Dead Season 1, if you haven't played it. But I assume everyone here has played it.
Yes.
I have, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Well, for one, Lee and Clementine are a couple of my favorite characters in gaming ever. And I love that game. Honestly, that game probably made me hate the TV show a lot, but that's a conversation for a different day. But
I can understand why, though. I get it. I get it, man.
Yeah. But one of the moments that legitimately had me in tears is the end of the first season of that game when Lee is dying, and not even him dying being the part that like had me tearing up. It's when you're telling Clementine, giving her these recommendations on what she should do without him, and it pops up on the screen that she'll remember that. And that killed me for some reason. Well, it was my first time playing an episodic game like that, for one. But even then, like that, just that little bit there actually killed me. And that is going to stick with me forever. They completely dropped the ball with season 2, which is another conversation for another time. But if y'all are still playing it, they're actually building upon that moment really well with New Frontier.
Okay.
Because you get to see this character that you influenced in the first season kind of grow up and make decisions based on things that she experienced with you then. And it's made me think about things like being a parent, because honestly, I never really cared for doing it, just because I was like, I can't afford to have a kid or take care of a kid financially, or I'm not emotionally mature enough to do that. But when I played that game, like I felt like Tim was my kid, and it made me start thinking about the future and having a child.
Awesome.
Obviously, I have not had a kid yet. We've made major strides on financial and emotional stability in that regard. But yeah, that is one of my favorite moments. And honestly, those games have a lot of moments that are very, very memorable. That one is number one for me.
I love that moment too. It destroyed me as well. I don't hate as much on the second season. I think it has its moments too, but it's clearly not as good. But yeah, oh man, Lee and Clem in that first season. I kind of want to play it again, but also not, because I don't want to have a different playthrough. Like I want to kind of stick to my consequences. But it's a great moment. For me, everybody played Suikoden 1.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, good. So another spoiler there. Gremio's Sacrifice.
Ooh, that's a good one.
That was something I was not ready for at that age, I think. Like I have 2 older brothers, and I get along really well with them. But one is I always looked up to, because he took me on stuff and like adventures when you're a kid, like, you know. So I kind of projected him onto Gremio. So when that moment comes, when the spores come and to eat you alive, and he just pushes you out and closes the door behind you. That would have been like a good moment. But then you have the whole conversation through the door, like, dear Lord, like how is a 12-year-old supposed to deal with that kind of material? And to touch on what you're saying, John, is like this was a long time ago, and games were touching on some pretty serious stuff, and through text-based sprite animations, they managed to elicit a lot of emotion, which is amazing when you really think about it.
It's incredible.
Yeah, to see what they can do now, but how that hasn't changed, how they managed to pull on your heartstrings back then. But like that moment, like I was like, now what? And I have to admit, like a little bit was like, but what about all the items that I had equipped on it? Yeah, that was pretty bad. And then I played it whole through, and then because back then you couldn't just like Google like whatever, like you had to read in like some obscure magazine that you could revive him. I was like, oh my goodness! So I played the whole game again. I took it to me 2 playthroughs to get all the stars, and then I revived him. It was just such a good moment. And then I didn't play until again my adult life on the Vita when I played Suikoden 2 for the first time. The first one, and then the second one, and I had to do a perfect play again because then you can see him again in the second game, and it's just such a cool moment. I also killed my other brother, Pan. I don't know how you guys pronounce it. When he lost against his dad, that was kind of sad too. But not as bad as self-sacrifice. Like that's just material that I wasn't really ready to think about yet. I also want to hook into Mass Effect, Jackie, because I played Mass Effect 2. I'd never played Mass Effect 1 because I got on board with Mass Effect 2, and I hated that game. In the first time I played it, like the combat didn't click for me. I didn't care about the characters because you don't really know them. And then I gave the second shot like a year later, and then it all worked, and then it became one of my, I think it's probably my top 3 favorite games of all time, Mass Effect 2.
Wow.
That speech at the end, it's just killer. Shepard's speech. Great game. How about you guys? Anything to add to everybody's moments there?
Building up on the self-sacrifice. I know how this is going to sound, but do y'all remember Illusion of Gaia?
Hell yeah.
Do you remember Hamlet? I was so sad because the whole time, this came out on the SNES. I don't remember exactly what year, but it was an RPG. And you're this little boy, Will, and you make friends with, I believe she was a princess, and she had a pet pig. Mm-hmm. And they just... she stays with you for the most part throughout this entire adventure, and then towards end game, I'm trying to remember. I think you're in a village or something, and people there are starving and everything, and then you are presented with this threat, like they're going to kill you, and then this little pig that the princess has as a pet. He tries to save everybody. He tries to save you and her, and he walks into a fire. And he sacrifices himself so that these people can eat. And I lost it as a kid. I'm like, what do you mean the pig dies?
That's not. I've never played the game, so that's just.
That was really big for me.
Yeah,
that was really big. Oh my gosh, I'm tearing up right now.
Another moment that came up when I posted this on Twitter was Pelennor again.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah.
That is also something I had to take a step away from. That is fine. I always forget.
Final Fantasy IV.
Final Fantasy IV, yeah. In Europe, we call it just Final Fantasy II, I think. Also a great moment, but it just got bumped down for something else for me. John, I want to ask you something because I played Walking Dead Season 1 before I became a dad. Did you play it while you were when you were already a dad?
I did, yes.
Did you think that drove it down further than if you wouldn't have been a father?
Oh man, that's a tough question. Honestly, I've got issues with the Walking Dead games, simply because so the easy answer is no. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I never went past The Walking Dead Season 1. Mm-hmm. simply because I was a big fan of the show until I played. This is going to sound weird. I was a big fan of the show until I played The Walking Dead season 1, and the game actively made the show worse for me.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I was like, okay. I was like, I'm enjoying the show. I don't want anything to affect my enjoyment of the show. So I'm not gonna play the game until the show is done. Of course, now here we are at season 8, and the show just objectively sucks now, it's terrible. And so now I need to go back and catch up on everything I've missed on the actual Telltale game. So long-winded answer. The answer is no. But I think that's partially because I have not seen the series all the way through. Because of the show, which in a weird way makes me angrier at the show.
Yeah. And I do want to clarify something real quick. When I said that I was disappointed with the second season, it's only because the moment that was set up at the end of the first, they didn't capitalize on it and move you forward from there. Because in the second season, you are playing as Clementine. Yeah. So you do not get an opportunity to see what she would have done, with the information that he gave her. But in New Frontier, you get to see that because you play as her occasionally, but you play as another character as well.
Okay.
And New Frontier is absolutely fantastic. Even the new characters that they introduced. Like if you thought there were gray areas in season 1, season 3 is just, it's frustrating every step of the way.
Are they on Switch? Are they on Switch yet?
Not yet.
So that's where I want to play them. I want to play them on Switch.
That makes perfect sense.
Because I want to play everything on Switch. So
that's good. That's good stuff. All right, we'll see. We might stretch this out a little bit. Jackie, what's your last moment?
Oh, it is A Link to the Past.
Good one.
Anyone who had the ability to play games on the SNES, chances are very, very high that you were able to play this lovely little gem. And it's a pretty basic. Your Link, save Zelda, kill a bunch of baddies, get pendants and crystals, kill the big bad pig, save Hyrule. And I never really got into Zelda 1. Certainly never touched Zelda 2. I didn't understand that at all. But Link to the Past kind of stayed with me. And then I forgot about it. Yeah. It was kind of just... It was part of my childhood. It's part of my past. And then it wasn't until last year of July, my boyfriend said, "Hey, have you ever heard of randomizer?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know. What does that mean?" And he said that there was a community who had basically randomized the items in Link to the Past. Mm-hmm. So you could get end game items like in the very, very beginning chest. And then depending on that, your routing and your execution came into play. And all of the pendants and all of the dungeons were also randomized as far as like the pendants and crystals, not necessarily the bosses, but that's another thing. Yeah. And I was watching this community go through a tournament. It was just 2 players and whoever had the best time won. And I had to have watched since then several hundred races. I've watched this game several hundred times since last July, and I never got sick of it. I'm addicted to it, and it is amazing just seeing how like some of the glitching works, and just seeing how fast these speedrunners are. And I actually started playing randomizer. I was like, I wonder if I can do it. And the crazy thing is, a lot of the vanilla game stayed with me, so I understood those mechanics. I understood how some of that worked in randomizer. And because I've watched so many races, I actually improved my routing by like 200%. My first rando was like at 5 hours. And then my second, or 5.5 hours or something like that. And then my second ended up being like 3 hours. And now I'm averaging about like 2.5. And it was amazing to me because this basically revived it. For me, I'm reliving my childhood over and over and over again. I don't understand how I'm not sick of it. I had to have played Link to the Past probably about 15 times in the last several weeks. And that is so amazing to me that you have all of these game devs who are able to kind of almost recreate this classic. And you have like thousands of people who are playing this, and it's kind of nice to kind of revisit it with a lot of people because, you know, when we're kids, it was difficult connecting with people. We didn't have cell phones back then. We certainly didn't have multiplayer back then. And so to kind of like find a group of people where you can talk about your love of this game and kind of like build relationships and friendships and all that stuff. It's so heartwarming to me. And I don't see it slowing down either. So a game that I stopped playing over 20 years ago is now present again in my life, and I'm loving it even more. That's pretty damn cool to me.
Yeah, it is cool. I've never heard of that before. Like, where can we find this thing, randomizer?
Yeah, I can send you a link. There's you just download an emulator.
Yeah.
And then throw the seeds in there, and then off you go.
Oh,
and it's crazy. They even have all of the keys. It's a version that's called Key Sanity, and all of the keys in the game are randomized as well.
Yeah. So
it's just all over in the overworld, and these people are amazing. Within 2 hours, they can beat the entire game.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I'll see if I can link that. I'm not sure how they feel about linking to ROMs and stuff, but I'll figure that out because it sounds very interesting. Okay, can we let John go now, or should we just like cut him off altogether?
I think we can trust him with this one.
Okay. We'll put him on the spot again. All right, John, what's your third one?
So I waffled on this a great deal, right? Like I was like, okay, well I could go with John Marston writing in Mexico. I could go with Would You Kindly. I could go with a number of different things, but I decided again to go something very personal to me, something much more recent than Final Fantasy VI. So for me, my third moment would have to be basically the entire game, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. Mm-hmm. So, like, as someone who struggles with his own form of mental illness, right? Like, I have severe generalized anxiety and OCD, and it's been my entire life. It's been crippling. It's always been a super touchy subject for me because when you hear the term mental illness, there's a really big stigma around that, and in a lot of ways, the entertainment industry is partially to blame for this, right? Yeah. They don't mean to do it. Like, I've enjoyed games like Manhunt and Outlast, but often I see a lot of forms of passive and interactive media kind of attempt to tackle the subject, and they fall back into the trope of just to pick this mentally ill person as a psychopath, right? Yeah. Going all the way back to Kafka is a great example. He's crazy, right? He's evil. He's a murderer. So when I discovered that Senua's Sacrifice approaches the subject of mental illness with grace, nuance, and empathy, I was relieved and impressed. And the fact that the entire thing exists within the framework of an amazing game only makes it that much sweeter for me. And when you first boot up the game, there's all kinds of stuff you're going to notice at first, right? Like you might be drawn to the sun blowing through the trees. You may appreciate the level of detail in Senua's hair and the texture of her clothing. But if you're like me, your attention will be immediately dominated by the voices in her head.
Yes.
Because Senua suffers from psychosis. And so there's a litany of ever-present voices kind of swirling within her consciousness. Some are comforting and reassuring. Some are harsh and accusatory. Some tell her, hey, push forward in your quest. And others kind of are afraid and implore her to turn around and leave. Just don't come back. Sometimes they'll bitch at each other. Sometimes they'll be in agreement. When you're fighting in battle, they'll tell someone to get up. They'll tell her to look down, look behind her, tell her the fight is almost over, or complain that it will never end. And they will even talk over the game's monologue when coming across some exposition, right? Because that's what psychosis does. It doesn't wait for you to finish listening to a story or allow you to bask peacefully in the sound of the waves in the shore, catch your breath, right? Like psychosis, just like any other form of mental illness, is always there. It's always with you, and it's something that I carry with me every single minute of every single day. I fight my own battle with my own mental illness every moment of every day. I have my entire life. Mm-hmm. So psychosis and mental illness in general are ever present and intrusive. And the way Ninja Theory implemented it was just, for me, nothing short of revolutionary. And they actually took the time to consult with a bunch of psychologists, mental health experts, and people actually suffering from psychosis to help portray Senua's inner torment as accurately as possible. And the end result was just, in my opinion, just a new industry standard for representation of people with mental illness. It was just, for me, it was absolutely awe-inspiring. And hopefully it is that first step in the industry towards breaking down the stigma of mental illness, because there are 40 million people just in the United States alone that suffer from all kinds of mental illness. And these and you hear about it every time you see a school shooting or a mass shooting. Well, was he mentally ill? Was he mentally ill? No, he was just fucking evil. Most violent crimes are not committed by people with mental illness, and not enough people involved in the entertainment industry or the video game industry know that. And so, for me to see this character depicted as not evil, as not crazy, but just somebody who suffers as millions of other people suffer, but she remains a good person, she remains a decent-hearted person, that for me was incredibly personal and emotional. And again, like I said, the fact that it all exists, it's all wrapped up in a beautiful, engaging, fun game to play, made it all that much better for me. And Senwa herself is just stalwart, and she's strong, weak, afraid, resolute, loving, and angry all at the same time. She acknowledges her affliction as something she can't help. She accepts it, and she uses it as equal parts shield, salve, and crutch. And that's what I've tried to do with my own mental illness. She's probably the most positively human game character I've ever encountered, and her story is just one that resonated with me entirely. I've never cared about a character's well-being like I did hers.
Okay.
So for me, it's the entire game, Hellblade, the entire game.
That's good. I'm a bad gamer. I have not played this game yet. I can't.
Wow.
Oh my goodness, you really
I
have
know.
to.
I know.
Wow.
I'm gonna make it a priority. I promise.
Well, we'll play it together. How about that?
We'll play it.
I will buy it for you if I have.
I have purchased it for someone because it is that good.
I'll play it. I promise. Think you promise.
Okay.
All right, Charles.
Okay, also, again, he should have done it less.
Yeah.
We dropped the ball.
I'm never inviting this guy again. I swear to God. I'm never gonna do that.
This last one is actually the one I have the least to say about, but it kind of piggybacks a little bit off something that he said about how Cinema is one of the most human characters that he's played with in a game. And it's the moment is the lie that Joel tells at the end of The Last of Us. The Last of Us, I cherish the entire game. It's one of my favorite games ever. It quickly became a favorite. On the small scale, I loved reading the notes as I went through the game and like learning about the people that were there that are probably dead at that time, and just seeing how that world unfolded with all of the stuff going on. And that attention to detail just like was very impactful for me. And on Joel's lie, it kind of plays into like a lot of the tropes with a lot of games. You know, you're a nobody and then you can save the world. And this game kind of introduced that because Ellie is the one who is immune to the virus, right? And I thought it was going to go that path, like, oh, you're going to sacrifice her, and now you're going to be able to save everyone, despite the whole thing the situation that Joel went through at the beginning of the game, which could be is probably in a lot of people's top 5 for most impactful moments too. Yeah. The very opening stages of that game. But I was completely blown away, and you have no control over this particular moment, when he tells Ellie that I can't even remember exactly what he said, but ultimately he said that she couldn't save everyone. He made a very selfish decision and a very, very human decision. Yeah. And I appreciated that because I don't get that enough in a lot of the games that I play. Yeah. And like I just felt like that was very relatable. I totally could see myself making that decision in that moment. You don't know that her death is going to fix this problem. Yeah. So, you can go on living with this person. And also, honorable mention to Left Behind. The DLC, the entirety of that DLC.
Yeah, it's pretty.
It's a moment that I'm not going to forget because I definitely was crying in their last interaction with each other. Yeah. Their last conversation with Ellie and her best friend. So, that is my last moment.
Yeah. I can really relate to that, Charles. As a father, I have a 9-year-old, and I would let the entire world burn before I sacrifice my son for anything. Yep. Exactly. And that's so when Joel made that call, I thought to myself, because he literally kind of doomed the entire world to remain in this state because he wanted to keep his surrogate, basically, for lack of a better term, at this point, Ellie was his surrogate daughter. Yeah. and he would not sacrifice her because he loved her too much. And I would not sacrifice my son to save the world. I wouldn't. He's my son. How could I? You know, and we can all say, oh, we would do what we have to do for the greater good. But at the end of the day, fuck that. It's my son. I'm not sacrificing my son.
Same here.
So that's an amazing moment and just a benchmark for the industry.
Yeah, I think it's such a good choice that they didn't leave that up to the player. Like it wasn't like a R2 moment. It was like, no, this is the story that I want to tell. Like that made that decision even better.
Naughty Dog, give us DLC about Ish, please.
Ready for a very unpopular opinion?
Oh my goodness, here we go.
No, don't do it.
I don't have a problem with that moment, but I did not like the game.
Oh,
I think it's
I did not like the game.
Yeah.
Okay, but I will say that the winter episode, one of the best levels I've ever played in any game. I will give it that.
David was a great antagonist.
Yeah.
But I didn't like how it was very predictable. Certainly the mechanics, like I rage very, very easily. So the clunkiness of the mechanics really got to me. And that actually, it got to me to such a point where it took away from the impact of the game itself.
Yeah.
I didn't like that. Plus, I'm also shit at stealth. So this was
That's a very bad game for you.
This is the worst for me. But I do appreciate bits and pieces of it. But I thought the story itself was a little bit predictable. Mm-hmm. And that really got to me. However, again, like I said, I thought Winter was phenomenal. Yeah. And then it just went back to why I hated it all over again. But I will play the sequel. I am open to doing that.
Yeah. It's interesting how that works. I have a friend, he also did not like it. It was just too slow for him, and then you just don't get to the good parts of the story. I think it's going to fit into our panel, John, like how to play correctly.
Yep. That's going to be good. I can't wait for that panel.
The AI killed me, literally. In the game, the AI killed me.
It takes you out of the game a bit when when Joel's hiding behind a rock and there's clickers running everywhere, and then like one of your characters just gets up and runs into the middle of them and then runs back. But since it's the AI, there's no there's no detection. So I was like, okay, it's ridiculous. I was like, okay, I'm still playing a video game.
We're not there yet. That's good. That is good. Yeah, I have lots of opinions on The Last of Us 2. The opening for me was something that I was going to think of, but I'm going to play a bonus round later, so who knows what will come up. For me, it's a little bit more recent. I wanted to pick something more recent because I think I will remember it for a long time. Again, spoilers. Life is Strange Before the Storm. Episode 1. So I'm gonna. You mind if I talk about it though?
No, please.
Go for it.
All right. So the game, the first episode, it's good. I always have a little bit of trouble with prequels because I have attachment issues where I already know where stuff's going to happen. So you know a lot about the character, you know a lot about Chloe, you know about her past because you've already played through that in several timelines in the game before that. But at the end of the first episode, there's a moment where they're having typical teenager stuff happening, and at that point I was almost like eye-rolly about like how teenager it was. When Chloe's like raging out with a baseball bat in a junkyard, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, here comes the teenage rage. And then at some point, you just see her legs, and then you see the baseball bat drop, and then she just goes like, Dad? And then she finds the car that her dad died in a car accident, and she just breaks down. And as she breaks down, I was playing this in the dark by myself. I had a couple of drinks, so all my barriers were down, and I was just like, I started, like, I felt my face like streaming. I was like, what the hell? Like, it was a literal gut punch. Like, I think I made a sound when it happened. I went like, ugh. And I haven't had that happen like often in a game, but that was such a reaction I got, and the only thing I can compare it to was one of the last episodes of Stranger Things. Like, I'm a sucker for parent stuff nowadays. Like, that just breaks my heart all the time. But that was such a that mom, man, just thinking about it, like, it breaks my heart. But if you haven't played it yet, absolutely, that will ruin you.
Okay, I thought you were going to drop the Stranger Things spoilers. I'm like trying to finish it now.
Oh, okay, no. I didn't want to get too much into it just for that. But it's good. It's good. But so that's more recent, and I think like 20 years from now, I'll probably still remember that moment. Because with a lot of these things, it's, I think, where you are in life and when you're specifically playing the game probably adds to the moment. Like if I would have played this any other day where I had like friends over, like it would not have had that impact. So what do you guys think that makes these moments, like if we're, I'm not even gonna let John talk on this one because we know why. Like, do you think if you would have played these games in another time, like frame of mind, it would have the same effect on you guys, or do you think it's just right time, right place in these things? I'll start with you, John, just for kicks.
Okay, sure. I think it's all about these games coming along. Like, I don't think it's even the games themselves. I think it's the moments that these things happen, right? Like Final Fantasy VI came along at a time when I needed it most, and if I'd grown up in an incredibly happy home, which I did not, then I don't feel like that game would have resonated with me, quite the way it did. So for me, it's not so much the game itself as it is the moment. Yeah. That period of my life is really what kind of made the game resonate with me. And of course, the game itself is responsible for some of that because, the game is the thing that has resonated. The game is the thing that I am connecting with, but I could not have made that connection had I not experienced that hardship. It's like trying to empathize with somebody who is going through something that you never have, like I don't know. You guys get what I'm saying, right? Yeah. Like I cannot conflate my experiences with like Jackie's, for example, right? Because because that's Jackie's life. I cannot, at the end of the day, completely understand any of the trials that she has been through because I have not walked in her shoes. Yeah. So that's kind of how I feel about the whole thing, right? Like it's all about those moments.
Yeah. I heard Jackie thinks Final Fantasy VI sucks.
Well, then Jackie and I can never ever.
Why are you bringing me into this one?
Jackie, is that true?
No,
Jackie, is that
true?
Just kidding.
That's in my top 3.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you had said it. I'm just making sure.
Good. Time to throw Jackie under the bus here.
Nice, thank you.
Jackie, your first one specifically, like if you would have logged on an hour later, your whole moment would not have happened. So do you think, again, it was just the right time, right place? Was it just that party? Or do you think you would have had a similar experience with that game specifically?
Well, the funny thing is I have played multiplayer online after, several years after, and recently. Yeah. And I have never experienced that same moment. Yeah. And I agree a lot with, your own life experience kind of shapes how you view the games that you currently play. Yeah. And this is a really stupid example. It's beyond silly, but Stardew Valley.
Oh my god, I love Stardew Valley.
It's a cutesy game, but when you really start diving into it, you start seeing these characters for who they really are. It's actually a very deep game.
Oh yeah.
And
it absolutely is.
I think that if I were to play this when I was a teenager, and if I ended up marrying Sebastian as a teenager, and then he said stupid shit like, I heard that you gave Sam a present. Do I have to keep my eye on you? Yeah. As a teenager, I would have accepted that because I'd be like, I guess. What? Yeah. As a strong, independent woman,
yeah, right?
I was just like, oh, so how much is a divorce? $50K? All right, let's make that happen. Yeah. And so your views, your life experience, whether you experience it yourself or through close friends, it really, really shapes your opinions and your morals and your views, and that. I wish that we had time travel so that we can have like an experiment of like, what would 10-year-old Jackie, how would she feel if she played this game compared to 33-year-old Jackie playing this game. And I think that your moments that happen for a reason. I am a believer of that. But I also do believe that I kind of lost my train of thought, but yeah, I do think that your day to day and the things that you experience over time very much impact how you feel about the games that we play today.
Yeah. Charles, for you, we're gonna expect a remake of Final Fantasy VII in the next 10 to 12 years, probably.
20.
Yeah. Do you think if you were gonna play Final Fantasy VII remake for the first time, as a by then 65-year-old man, do you think it would have the same impact as when you saw Aerith die when you were a teenager?
No, I don't think so. Well, her death may have like a more emotional impact, but when it comes to like the mechanic side, like how that kind of changed my perspective, it wouldn't have that because my goodness, I'm tired of open world games and open world at this point.
Yeah.
So and losing characters. I can't even think of like the most recent one, but I feel like a game I'm playing currently, someone just died, and I'm like, oh, well, okay, well, that sucks. But I'll tell you this: I have prepared myself to be entirely disappointed with the narrative in the remake. Yeah. I just, for some reason, I don't feel like it's going to be able to replicate a lot of the things that I experienced when I first played it. Yeah. So I'm like. I'm not hyping it up for anybody else. Like, oh yeah, play this remake. It's going to be the definitive version of this. Just play the old version, and if you have that attachment to it, if you have that experience, that's awesome. Yeah. But I'm not putting the weight in.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
The remake at all.
No. Now, for me, it's kind of the same. I agree with all of you that it's your state of mind and the timing. Like back then, self-sacrifice was this huge thing for me that I couldn't even imagine. But like John said, like when it comes to kids or your loved ones, like, oh, sacrifice yourself in a heartbeat for these people. So I think it would be a completely different experience. I'd be like, yeah, of course, Gremio is going to close that door if you can save everybody. So I think that's very interesting. I want to, Jackie, you mentioned Stardew Valley, and that is actually one of my moments as well. Not in the game, but I played that game with my wife when my kid was still very young, because she was a baby, couldn't do much yet, and we played like 200 hours in the span of a month.
Good Lord.
Yeah. And we would like go back and forth, like, okay, you can play 2 days in game, and then we switch, and then like because we were just at home like on mat leave, and we had such a good time bonding together over Stardew Valley. Like that is going to be something I remember as well. Years from now, if I had played that game by myself, it would have barely been memorable.
That's a lot of turnips, man.
Yeah. But my wife married, what's the drunk's name in Stardew Valley?
No. Oh my God.
I can't remember the drunk's name.
Sean?
Sean, yeah, I think so. And then what I hate about the game is like he has the best storyline, I think.
Yeah, he does.
When you get married. And then all of a sudden he it's as if they didn't finish his storyline. So she marries him, has a nice house, and he has like this slob ass room. And then what she did was every day she went fishing, got a piece of trash, and gave it to him. So he would get mad, and then he would just leave at some point.
That's amazing.
So if I ever get a shitty gift for my birthday, babe, I know you're listening. But I'm not gonna go anywhere. So before we close, I want to play one bonus round. So we've been talking about items that we remember really well, but I want to hear from you guys. If you could forget one moment, which moment would you pick that you could forget, so you either don't have to think about it again, or you can experience it again for the first time?
Oh, God.
John, you're going last. Fuck you. I'm going to start with Charles on this one.
Oh, boy.
Oh man, that's a really tough one.
Yeah.
Charles is like, shit.
Like,
No,
are
you
you
gotta
asking,
go
like,
first.
are you asking like just really crappy moments, like just?
No, you can pick a crap moment like, oh my god, I can't believe I wasted my time on a game. I'll forget about it. Or it was such a good moment that you want to relive it for the first time, like because it was so awesome.
Oh man.
I'll give you a bad choice and a good choice. If someone
As far as one that I want to relive, it'll be the entirety of Shenmue, the first one.
Okay.
Because that's against a popular opinion of whatever criticism you have of that game, that is my favorite game of all time. Actually, and yeah, I would be ecstatic to experience that for the first time. It was just. That's another one where I've had to like lower my expectations with Shenmue 3. And for one of the weirdest reasons, not even for the story, not for the combat or anything like that, but the depth of the game. Like I can go, into any of these buildings and pick up any of these little items and stuff like that. And I've like had to prepare myself mentally for not being able to do that in Shenmue 3. And that's such a weird thing. Yeah. But it is just something that stood out to me when I first played it. But I would love to relive that again. Now, as far as something that I would like to forget, I was thinking, Mass Effect 3's ending.
Yeah.
Here we go.
There we go.
I'm not going to go with that one.
Let it flow through. Yeah.
Goodness. You might have to come back to me on that.
All right, we'll do a double round. One forget to relive and one to forget because you never want to think about it again. Jackie, how about you?
I would like to relive, as an adult now, I would like to relive Resident Evil.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Because I was raised in a very sheltered household. I wasn't allowed to play Resident Evil. Wasn't allowed to play Mortal Kombat because of the blood. But of course, being in 8th grade, you kind of went to a friend's house and you sneaked the game. And I wasn't really allowed to truly experience it. I had to live vicariously through friends and everything. So I kind of played it, but I didn't really. And I feel that I missed out on a lot of that. And while I don't necessarily like horror games, I do enjoy streaming them. And it has like more of like interaction with the chat and everything like that. So I put myself through these horror games because it ended up actually being fun. And so I would actually like to relive my first horror game. I would want to be like super surprised when those dogs, jumped through the window, or when you ran into your first zombie, or hell, even with Resident Evil 2, when you found that alligator and then you had to go through Dr. Birkin and everything. It's because that I was so sheltered. I wasn't really allowed to experience those on my own. So I think I would like to either forget about it, relive it now, or forget about it and relive it as 8th grade Jackie, which I think would be even more fun. But yeah, I think that would be my best.
Can you behave, John? Can you behave?
I'm going to hit you with something so profound that is just going to...
Here we go.
No, I'll spare you. So, like, the easy answer would be Final Fantasy VI, but I'm not going to use that as a crutch.
I'm going to cut in for it. If you would forget Final Fantasy VI and you would play it today for the first time, do you think it would have such a special place in your heart, or would it just be any other game? If you play it today, like you
If I played it today for the first time, no.
So
which is why carefully. I don't. So if I can pick a game to experience the first time all over again, you know what? I'm a huge fan of old school 2D Metroidvania games. And the Metroid series is one of my, like, if I could list you my 3 favorite game series of all time, it would be Final Fantasy, Metroid, and probably Castlevania. I'm sorry, no, I take that back, Mega Man. I would experience Metroid Prime again for the first time because it switched up. It threw a wrench into everything we knew about Metroid. And, I was just like everybody else. We all, when Metroid Prime was announced as a first-person game, I was like, fuck that. No, get that shit out of here. That's bullshit. Like, don't you do that to Samus. Don't you do that to my Metroid. But then it came out and it was fucking awesome. And it redefined everything about that series. It took everything that we knew about Metroid and crumbled it up into a little ball and pulled you out of your safe zone and dropped you into this new first-person world where somehow they were able to implement all the gameplay elements of a 2D Metroid game into a 3D world. And that, for me, was just nothing short of brilliant. So, and if the rumors I have heard are true, I don't know if you guys have heard these rumors, but I talk to people who I trust. If the rumors of a Metroid Prime Trilogy HD on the Switch are true, I can finally experience those games all over again. So please, Nintendo, let the rumors be true. Make it happen and give me Metroid Prime Trilogy on Switch fucking immediately.
Yeah. Fair enough. I'm gonna, well, not cheat, but if I could forget Final Fantasy VII and play it for the first time in the remake, hopefully it's good, I would pick that, no doubt, because I am a little jealous of people who are gonna, if they keep the story intact and not mess around with it too much, if you can have your first experience with Final Fantasy, if you're 16 years old today, or well, in 10 years, and you're gonna play it and it looks like that is gonna be amazing. Like for us, we're spoiled. Like not spoiled in a good way. We've been spoiled by knowing the story. That we're gonna compare it constantly to the original. And like, oh, Red didn't look that good in dress back then. I think it's gonna take away having to have the original experience. And I envy that. But again, like I hope they get the same experience that we did when we were kids. But that would be my pick, to forget and then relive it in the remake, because that just has to be fantastic. But I was going to end on a positive note, but I want to hear like what kind of shitty experience you want to just forget about and never have to do it again.
I'm going to change my game to relive, because one thing I didn't do this entire time is mention any multiplayer games.
Oh, yeah,
I do play a lot of multiplayer games. And so I'm going to replace it with reliving playing Halo 2 with my like closest friends.
Okay.
Because that is one of the best multiplayer experiences I've ever had. We would have LAN parties with each other. We went to some church in our neighborhood that had a massive like overnight LAN party where we slept not a wink at all, and it was amazing. And like we've had moments. I worked at GameStop at one point, and there was like a guy talking shit at GameStop. And I was like, you know what? I'll just throw a TV on the pool table and we can set up Xboxes. I will call my boys and like shit like that.
Yeah.
I want to relive all of that because it's amazing.
Pretty sweet, yeah.
Yeah. But as far as shitty things, shout out to Katie, BioShock Infinite.
Hi.
Oh, God, no! No!
There we got it. Like, we're so close to the finish line. We've got discourse.
Oh, I'm glad. The beginning and end. I've gone into detail about why I disliked that game,
mm-hmm.
and I think if you listen to like the episode of the podcast where I break it down, it will make a lot of sense. Like it's an okay game, and the ending is as phenomenal as everyone makes it out to be,
mm-hmm.
but everything between the beginning and end just sucked ass to me. I really didn't like it. It was so bad.
Final word, John. You can't like erase his erased memory, so you're just gonna have to live with this one.
Yeah, no.
Erase this exact moment.
Yeah, I want to erase this entire podcast.
All right, Jacob. What would you like to erase from your memory?
Man, the fact that I even think about this means that I have not let it go.
Uh-oh. Suikoden 4.
No. It's worse.
Oh.
But back in 2008, so this is 10 years ago now,
mm-hmm.
I was dating a guy who was very much into WoW.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, okay, to kind of, and he was like really, really, really into WoW. So I thought in order for us to get a little bit closer, I was like, all right, how about I throw WoW onto this laptop and you can teach me the game and all that. And it just didn't work. Even if I did play, it was still an obsession. Mm-hmm. And we got into a fight.
Oh,
and we couldn't talk. We couldn't talk. Even though I wanted to talk, he couldn't. And I said, I think I would get more interaction from you if I put a nameplate of my name on your monitor. But because I was pretty, admittedly I was pretty butthurt because I tried. I actually liked it. I actually liked WoW. I had a purple chocobo at one point. I don't know, amounts. Is that what they call them now?
Mounts.
Yeah.
The mounts.
Yeah, so I actually invested time into this, and I tried investing into something that he really, really liked. And me being a gamer myself, I was like, okay, well, we can find some common ground here. Nope, didn't work out. And he broke up with me and kicked me out of the apartment via email.
What?
Wow.
Yes.
Fuck that guy.
So I'm kind of like,
Can we erase him too?
I know it's not.
I'll find him to kick his ass, Jackie.
Thank you. But I was like, it kind of hits me still.
Yeah.
So I never really went back to the game, and so I kind of, and I know, logical, rational woman here. It is not WoW's fault. but that memory is tied to the game, and I was like, I don't think I could ever go back to it, even if I wanted to try.
Can't say I blame you.
Yeah.
So
I have a confession to you guys. I've been feeling the itch to try World of Warcraft, just to dive in one more time and see what it is like.
Go for it.
Don't do it.
I can't afford it.
I cannot do it. I'm a child.
I did it for a month. I really wish I could find the picture so I can tweet it out because it probably became a meme. But I tried it for a month, and the picture my friend took of me, I looked like a homeless man just sitting in this corner with a dinner, like one of those dinner trays and a laptop and like a blanket, and I was just like, oh god. And no, it's not
worth it.
Lose your family.
I was listening to like Westfall music on YouTube. I was like, oh, but it was so fun to just walk around. I was like, no, let's not. Let's do it. And then Kate from Twitter, she works at Blizzard. She was like, well, I can hook you up with your old account that you had on European. So I was like, no, you enabler. You do not do that to me.
Don't go there.
But yeah, so
you reminded me of amazing things again, though.
I know Westfall, man. That's where it all happened. Okay, John, what's your? We need to skip over WoW, otherwise we're all playing by midnight again. Let's start a guild. No, let's not. John, what would your erased moment be?
It would have to be the worst RPG of all time, which I think we can all agree is Final Fantasy XII.
I never played that game.
A terrible RPG, a terrible Final Fantasy game with a shitty protagonist who has nothing to do with the plot whatsoever. Two shitty protagonists that have why Ash or Balthier or Captain Bosch von Ronsenberg of Dalmasca were not the protagonist. I don't know why they had to do with Vaughn or Pinello. Terrible characters. The awful MMO light battle system where you can just set up these gambits and the game fucking plays itself for you. Vane, who was the villain, had absolutely no connection with the party whatsoever. He met them once at the beginning, and you did not meet him again until the very end of the game during his final boss fight. So there was I felt no antagonism toward him because I was like, I don't care. Like, he has no connection with the party whatsoever. The story was awful. The voice acting was terrible. It's Marquis, not Marquis. Square Enix, it's Marquis, not Marquis. Every time one of those characters said the Marquis, I was like, that's not how you pronounce it. Jesus.
Wow. Obviously, I haven't played this.
It is not a good game. It is not a good Final Fantasy game. And the reason I hate it so much is because being a massive Final Fantasy fan that I am, I was in fucking Afghanistan when this game came out. I had this shitty little wood hut that I lived in on the base, and I had a PlayStation 2 and a CRT television, and I ordered Final Fantasy 12. Took 2 weeks to get there, and it got there. I was like, this is my reprieve from all the fucking bullshit going around. I got Final Fantasy 12, and it sucked. And I was so mad. That is the Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull of games for me. And it was so fucking bad. Fuck that game.
That's
no, I get emotional
because like 12 is one of the ones that I played a little bit of. I didn't get that far into it.
So bad.
And I purchased the remaster, and I'm like excited to play it.
So bad.
But and like everything that you said, I could totally understand that. Is even though I hate Final Fantasy 10-2, not the gameplay. I hate the story of 10-2, and I hate the story of 13 a whole lot more. I can from everything that you said, I can totally understand.
13 is the underrated gem of that entire series.
No, we are not going that.
What?
Yes.
We are not doing that.
13 is great. 13. Everybody's like, "Oh, Final Fantasy X, it's so great. Final Fantasy 13 sucks because it's linear." I'm like, "What the hell do you think?"
No. It's not just because it's linear. It's because the characters are completely shit.
Lightning and Saz were infinitely better characters than Titus and Yuna. The battle system was one of the best in the entire series. I agree.
But wait. You compare those two characters to those two because the rest of them are bad.
I will concede that Vanille is terrible, and I will concede that Space Pope is the worst villain in the entire series. Like Space Pope is bad.
I'm just gonna let this play out, so don't mind me.
But that battle system is fucking phenomenal. It's phenomenal.
The battle system is okay.
The music, Yoko Shima. I'm sorry. It was Hamauzu. Masashi Hamauzu did such an amazing job with the soundtrack in that game. The magic system is incredible. The summons are awesome. The guest hosts, even though like Shiva's summon was a little embarrassing when they kind of I used to call it the sex cycle because I'm like so it's wow, that's embarrassing. It was really bad. But aside from that, everybody criticizes 13 for having a lot of the same shit that 10 did, and it just blows my mind every time I hear it.
Because I love Final Fantasy mainly because of the characters and the story. And in 13, those two things are the worst. The characters are bad and annoying and useless. And
the characters in 10 are bad and annoying and useless.
Not all.
They're both pretty bad.
The villain in Seymour, even his name sucks.
Okay, I hate him because he's prettier than I am.
Seymour is a terrible character. The voice acting in 10, I get that it was like, in 2001, but God, that voice acting does not hold up at all. Like, it's so bad. And at least the voice acting in 12 was decent. It was pretty good, even though they can't pronounce fucking words properly. It was still good. Like, I'm going to warn you, don't get me into a Final Fantasy conversation because I will keep you here until 1 o'clock.
Yeah. No, I was actually going to say he needs to do another episode.
It's going to be episode 7, ranking Final Fantasies. That's what we're going to do.
Well, that's easy. The top 3, the top 5 are.
Save for the show, John. Save for the show.
Okay. Okay, I'll save it.
My moment to delete is this conversation so we can have it again.
15 is the second best.
Don't bait me. Don't bait me on this.
15 is the second best Final Fantasy, and that's all there is to say about that.
Yeah. Only this guy. Why do we fight this guy anyway? I have a very simple one. I'm just going to delete Zelda 2 from my memory because the game is super stupid. I bought it by accident, literally, and then I returned it. And then I bought it again by choice. I bought it by accident because I wanted to gift it to my stepdad.
You hate her?
You must really hate your stepdad.
I tried to buy Zelda 1 for him because we rented it one time and it was the favorite game of all time. So I bought it for his birthday, but they gave me Zelda 2 because it was also a golden box. So on the day of his birthday, we open it and it's like a wrong fucking game and it's terrible.
That's like when you're a kid and like me and you get Deadly Towers for Christmas.
Yeah.
The NES and the box art looks amazing and then you put it in and you're like, video games are fucking terrible and I never won.
It's the worst. It's absolute worst. But that was good. That was good. Good conversation. We're definitely gonna have some of you guys on again to do this exact podcast, but only on Final Fantasy moments.
We have to rank the Final Fantasy games. Yeah, that's going to be an episode.
But that means I was excited to play 13, and I don't want to do that.
No, 13 is great. You need to play 13.
The best character in 13 is that little Chocobones as his head.
No, the best character. No.
Yes.
Snow is the best character.
Okay, I'm not going to bullshit you and tell you that it's true because it's not. But I'm telling you right now, 13 is the underrated gem of that entire series. It's in the top 5.
But you said 15 is the second best. I can't take anything that you say seriously.
Hey, 7 and 9 are in there too.
Okay, I know for a fact, John, that by this whole Final Fantasy 12 run, you made at least one enemy. One of my friends, Larissa, she loves that game. So when she hears it, she's going to be so mad at you. Oh my goodness.
Is 15 better than Tactics? I'm just curious.
No.
Yeah, I don't think you can. I don't think you can compare the two story wise. No.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Final Fantasy Tactics is the Game of Thrones of video games. So no.
Got it. All right, we're back in good graces. I'll be on that episode.
I hate the art of Final Fantasy Tactics.
As long as we're talking about the War of the Lions.
What?
The War of the Lions. Wait, hold on. What did you say, Wow?
I said I hate the art of Final Fantasy Tactics. Like the protagonist looks like a little fat dude.
Wow, those fighting words.
Well, you can find your own hotel room for PAX. We're done. You and I are
Wait,
done.
did I say Final Fantasy Tactics, or did I mean another random game that you're not upset about?
You meant Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, I'm sure.
Probably, yeah, probably. All right. Okay, cut it out, guys. Not Final Fantasy. So I like to end the show always with a little segment that I call Podcast and Shill, where you all get to either promote something of yourself or someone else and just set them off that way. And I'm going to start with you, Jackie. What do you want to podcast and shill for?
Oh, I was not expecting this.
No,
it's actually very difficult for me to talk about myself.
Really? Well, you can shill for anything. Like, I never shill for myself. So if there's anything you want to have the viewers and the listeners be aware of, that this is your chance.
Yeah, well, as I opened with, I'm considered a casual streamer. I am on twitch.tv/Geeky Fried Rice. And basically stay for the horror games because I am a little pansy and I scream and shout. And I'm surprised that my neighbors have not called the cops on me yet. And I was being murdered.
And where can we find you on Twitter and all on the same handle?
Everything is Geeky Fried Rice.
All right, I like that. How about you, Charles? Anything you want to shill for?
Yes, actually, for my co-host on the Coins to Continue podcast, Pikachu Lita, aka Katie, which she was on your last episode.
That's right.
She is an absolutely amazing human being and streamer, and I really want her to get a lot more shine out there. So go to Pikachu Lita. It just literally that on Twitter and on Twitch as well, and you can hear her on the Coins to Continue podcast.
Awesome. And this is not kind of my show, but I had Katie on my show last week, and we talked a lot about how to get into streaming and what the challenges are and where you want to go. I really liked that episode. She is indeed a lovely person. So check out my own video last week. It was really good. So thanks, Charles. How about you, John?
You're welcome.
So you're telling me I can shill for anything? Right?
You can shill for anything except for Final Fantasy.
Except for Final Fantasy 15.
Anything. So no, hold on. It doesn't have to be video game related. I can shill for anything right now.
You can shill for. I shield for charities. I shield for all kinds of stuff. So go ahead.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to let this speak for itself.
Okay.
Have structured settlement and I need
Oh
I hate you so much.
I probably, maybe in the last few weeks, had forgotten that freaking phone number.
Don't forget, guys, call JG Wentworth 877 cash now. No. Okay.
You have no idea how much this stings me, John, because when I moved to Canada, I was unemployed for 3 months because I moved here on a random visa. So I watched TV 18 hours a day. And that commercial was on TV every 13 minutes. And when you played it, I was like, oh my goodness, they have that in the US.
My wife hates me right now because I've got my son trained. I'll just be cooking breakfast in the kitchen, and all of a sudden I'll look at him and I'll say, if you have a structured settlement, then you need cash now. He'll jump up off the couch, he'll yell, call JG Wentworth, 877 cash now. And, oh God, she hates us both. But no, you can catch us. Please go and follow our official Twitter account. It's at official SDGC. You can find me at Mr. Megative on Twitter. And we have two channels. We have our Twitch channel, which is where we stream all our podcasts from live. That's www.twitch.tv/official SDGC. We would appreciate a follow there. And we also archive all our videos on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/superdeformedgamescast. And as I stated earlier, you can find all of us on Twitter. All our Twitter handles are there. You can find me on takethis.org and now Polygon.com. I'm working on my second article for them. And you can also catch us at PAX in a couple of weeks.
Cool. And so I'm going to, I usually don't shill for my own show because you're already listening, but I am going to shill for the PAX panel that we're doing. I'm going to do that with John, Susan Aaron, and Sarah LaBeouf. We're going to talk about how talking to Dark Souls fans is the Dark Souls of talking. And we're going to dig into like the gamer mentality of get good and how you, if there's a way to play a game correctly. So I'm very excited about doing that for PAX. It's my first panel as well.
Don't forget, we have a mystery guest.
We have a mystery guest. Like I can't wait for him to announce that. So it's going to be pretty cool. Other than that, you can follow me on Twitter at the Hashtagonist, where the O is a 0, because the original handle was taken by someone who doesn't use it. God damn it.
I'm going to look that up now.
Yeah, no, she's really mean, actually. Because I sent her an email saying, hey, can I buy your thing? She was like, stop harassing me. I was like, I just want to have your handle. That was very mean. Anyways, this was a great episode. I really enjoyed it. We went a little off the hook there with Final Fantasy, so tune in later for a whole episode on Final Fantasy where I'm not going to invite John on just to piss him off.
Wow. Can I say one more thing before we go?
Well, fine.
Look, I've got one more thing to say, okay?
Okay. I'm just going to mute your ass. Okay, bye, John. Don't follow John on Twitter. Like, this is all this is all garbage. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I had a great time. This will go up on Monday, and if you're still listening at this point, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you get a good show. We're on YouTube, and if you want to have SoundCloud only, I'll put that up as well. So again, I really appreciate your views. They really mean a lot to me, and I hope you tune in again next week. And this was the episode 4 of the Hashcast. Thank you so much, and good night.